Hi, I'm Officer Brown.
Hello, I'm Officer Carly Garner. We are members of the Neighborhood Engagement Team with Fort Collins Police Services. The Neighborhood Engagement Team is responsible for addressing chronic criminal activity that is creating ongoing problems and safety concerns for citizens of Fort Collins. And what we do is we try to use a multifaceted, problem oriented approach to solving these problems. Dalton and I are responsible for the north side of Fort Collins. And what we're going to be talking with you today is about issues that have to do with criminal activity at hotels that would be particularly relevant for the housekeeping and maintenance crews at the hotels. The reason that this topic is important to us is because criminal activity at hotels is almost always directly related to criminal activity that is going on elsewhere in our community. The patrons who are staying at the hotels that tend to create a lot of these problems a lot of times are citizens of Fort Collins, and so they bring their problems that they are causing within their own neighborhoods to the hotels, and that's why it's really important for us to address these issues. Most of the people that our hotel staff members report as being involved in criminal activities at the hotels are typically people that we're already investigating on some level for additional crimes. And so it's really important that we get that information from the hotel staff to try and address some of those issues. These folks use the hotels as neutral sites to conduct their criminal business, which they would otherwise be conducting out of their own home. And it creates a lot of problems and concerns for safety in their neighborhood. And now they're bringing those safety concerns to your place of business, which we don't want to happen. We consider this a win-win partnership between us and you, where your reporting of the criminal activities at the hotels allows NET to address that behavior and increase the safety of our entire city. And then it also helps the hotel by creating a good reputation, rooting out unwanted behaviors and problems that negatively affect the profits and the reputation of the hotel. And it also allows you to contribute to the city of the safety of the city. So when we're addressing housekeeping and maintenance crews at the hotels, what are we looking for you to do for us? Well, the first thing and the main thing that we're looking for you to do is to be a good witness. What we're looking for ultimately is information. We're not looking for you to take action. We don't want you to place yourself in a situation that would be dangerous or uncomfortable for you. But what we are hoping that you can do is contact us, observe what's happening, document it, and contact us and report it to us so that we can take it from there and take action. You might be wondering, what are some of the types of criminal activity that actually occurs at the hotels? Well, it's a lot of the same activity that occurs throughout the city, but the main ones that we tend to see would be drug activity, so illegal controlled substances, fraudulent activity involving stolen credit cards and stolen identification documents, theft and stolen property, runaways, juvenile runaways, young people that have run away from their homes and are not in a safe environment. Fugitives who are wanted, so folks that have warrants or who are wanted for questioning and criminal investigations, and then prostitution and human trafficking. So a little bit just to clarify about human trafficking. Human trafficking specifically involves victims who are being prostituted against their will, or victims whose circumstances have rendered them powerless to refuse to participate in prostitution. It's oftentimes going to involve victims who are runaway juveniles who may be addicted to drugs, and it leads, in many circumstances, it leads to further crimes at the hotel, including assaults, thefts, robberies, crimes of a dangerous nature. So it's very important to us that that this type of activity be reported so that we can address it as soon as possible. These victims will be moved from the hotel to a new location in a very short amount of time. And it typically requires a significant amount of police intervention to investigate and impact the activity. So the sooner we can be informed about any type of information you have regarding human trafficking or any other type of criminal activity at the hotel for that matter, the quicker we're able to intervene and try to make a difference for those victims, which is very important.
So, like Officer Garner said before, you guys are in a position where sometimes you're the best witness to be able to observe these types of activities that we want to know about. Some of the activities that we're going to ask you to keep an eye out for are obvious and some not as much. So to start off, some of the things that you might want to look for are the amount of people that are coming and going associated with the room. And an important distinction to make is guests versus visitors. So oftentimes the visitors are the people that are there for a very short amount of time, maybe 5-10 minutes, and then they're up and gone. So that may be a clue that people are just stopping by for some type of illegal activity. The other thing to look for is people coming out and going to their cars frequently, or going to vehicles pulling up in the parking lot. That in and of itself is suspicious and not really normal for people just staying at a hotel to do. The entrances and exits that you might notice, and this could just be you observe this while doing your routine activities in a hallway or something like that, is if you see people using the back door or side doors to the hotel more frequently than just going through the lobby like most people do, that might also be a good indication that they don't want to necessarily be noticed or detected, so they're trying to kind of fly under the radar and not draw more attention to themselves. And sometimes they will purposefully ask or choose a room that is close to one of those side doors or one of those exits where they don't have to come through the lobby and see the employees as often. As it pertains to activity in the room, so if you guys are able to get in the room and see some of these indicators, here are things to look for. So the people themselves, they rarely leave the room. You don't see them coming and going as normal people who stay in the hotels do. And they may do a lot of the DoorDash and food deliveries to their rooms. So again, they're not as noticeable to staff coming and going. Some other things are like unusual odors. So specifically to drug type activity, like heroin has like a vinegar smell, or it might be a chemical type smell. If they're making a homemade pipe out of some plastics or something like that we've seen frequently in hotels. Another big tell is they'll put the housekeeping decline sign or whatever type of sign that they don't want to be disturbed on the door handle, and that'll be left up there the whole time they're staying there. Now, I don't know what policies everyone has on that. Some hotels, they have a policy as to if it goes beyond a day or 2 days, they're going in there regardless if that sign is up there or not. But that's just another thing to keep in mind. And then just strange behavior when being contacted by staff. So that's, if there's questions asked of them, they don't necessarily offer up much information. They seem to be more reserved and again, just kind of not the normal type of conversation you would have with a guest staying at your hotel. Once you get into the room, there's a lot of things that you can look for. One of them is tinfoil, and with that, it could be obviously burnt, as if someone just used it to consume illegal narcotics, or it might be folded up into squares. Sometimes you will see just a case of brand new tinfoil sitting out, and again, I would say that's probably not normal. Other things you might encounter are short straws, syringes, and those can be laying out or sometimes stuffed in a container or a pop can and then discarded in the trash. And we're not asking you to go dig through all this stuff and searching these things out, but if you happen to just have a look and see those things, we'd probably want to know about that. Other things to look for are plastic baggies, a journal that's often used to record their pay and owe schemes as it relates to selling narcotics, and then luggage that's not consistent with somebody staying there as a normal person would. Other things to look for in the hotel: if you see a plastic bag or some sort of covering over the smoke detector, that is obviously a red flag. If there are towels or tape around the door or window seals, again, that's something that's not normal. Other things you might notice are other people's credit cards. So if there's different names on credit cards, ID cards laying out, that's probably related to some sort of fraud or ID theft. Finally, with the human trafficking information that Officer Garner talked about earlier, some specifics to look for with that. Number one, with the female who's being handled by a male, she's not often allowed to talk or volunteer information. So if you were to ask her a question, she's probably going to look to him and defer to him to answer that for her. She's often not allowed to walk outside the room and around the premises freely. So just in a nutshell, she's not really allowed to act independently on behalf of herself. Some other things with that is often if she clearly looks young or underage and with an older gentleman, I'm not saying that's out of the realm of possibility. Sometimes that happens in legitimate relationships, but it might be a clue or a tell for you to observe more closely and see if there's anything else going on there.
So if you've started to notice a number of these indicators that Dalton discussed, and you're thinking that there's something strange going on, what we would really kind of point out is that you folks are the subject matter experts here. As the housekeeping and the maintenance crews, you have a lot of contact with the hotel patrons. You know what a hotel room looks like. You know what the normal behavior of your average guest looks like, what the normal state of the average room looks like. And so we would really trust you guys to know when something doesn't look normal, when something seems out of place, when you're starting to notice a number of indicators that lead you to believe that there's maybe something that the police should probably look into at this point. And so then the question is, what do I do? What should I do with this information once I've made these observations? So the first thing we ask you to do is just that, observe. We want you to look for these indicators, and if you start seeing the indicators that suggest to you that there's suspicious criminal activity going on, we want you to observe as much information as you can to provide to us. So specific descriptions are always great to have. Descriptions of the individuals involved, what their names are, if you happen to know their names, what they look like, the clothing that they're wearing, if there's anything unusual about their appearance that would make them stand out. The next piece of that descriptions and what the observations you're making are their vehicles. If you happen to notice what vehicles they're driving, license plates are a great piece of information for us to have because we can use that information to identify who, not only who owns the vehicle, but who else is associated with the vehicle, when that vehicle has been involved in previous criminal activity. So that can be some really useful information for you to provide to us. The room number and the location within the hotel, as specific as we can get so that we know what to be looking for when we get there and we know how to approach so that we can be surreptitious in our activities. That's also helpful. And then any of those indicators that you observe. So as much of that information as you can possibly provide about what was suspicious to you, why you thought it was suspicious, the more specific you can be, the better. So the next thing to do would be to document it. And that can be really any way you think of. You can just remember it if you're able to, and write it down for us if you're able to. If there's something that you find really strange and you can take a picture of it without getting yourself too involved in the situation, we're certainly welcome to that too. Again, we don't want you to be placed in any situation where you feel unsafe or where you would feel uncomfortable, but any way that you can provide us that information through documentation is always helpful. And then the final step would be to report it. And you might wonder, well, should I report this to the front desk staff, or should I call the police directly, or how should I report it? And the answer to that is that it kind of depends, just like any other business. I think it's always a great idea for you to talk with your coworkers at the front desk and find out, let them know, hey, this is what I saw. I think it's kind of strange. Did you notice anything about these folks? Chances are, if you notice something strange, the front desk staff did as well, and they can probably have some more information to provide to us when you guys call to actually report it. That can be helpful as far as their names, how many people are registered to the room, all that kind of stuff. So definitely report the information you have. For any type of emergency situation, so that would be some examples of an emergency would be a medical incident, an incident involving a fire, or any type of in-progress incident that would endanger someone, a burglary, an assault, a robbery, a disturbance, something that's happening right here, right now, and you're concerned about somebody's immediate welfare. We're going to consider that an emergency, and we're going to ask you to call 911 right away because we want to get officers there as quickly as possible. For non-emergency situations, so that might just be some of the things we've been talking about. You're seeing suspicious indicators that lead you to believe there might be criminal activity going on. You've observed some persistent criminal activity, so you know that there's something going on, and you've seen it happening over and over again. Or you've just made some general observations that you think it would be helpful for a net officer to know about regarding who's coming in and out of the hotel. Maybe you recognize some guests that have been there before and you knew that they were up to something in the past. Any of that information would be considered non-emergency information, but it's still information that we absolutely want to know about, that you can report to your front desk for them to call us, or that you can call us directly about. And then a question comes up of, can I be anonymous when I report? So when we're talking about anonymous contacts, you can definitely report anonymously, or you can report with your name and contact information. Our preference would be that you at least provide your name and your phone number so that we can get in touch with you, because oftentimes the initial information that's reported to dispatch doesn't have as much detail as we would like, and there's still some information that we would hope to get from you. And so we would like to be able to call you and ask you some more questions that maybe our dispatchers didn't know to ask when you called them, so that we can get them more information to continue our investigation. That doesn't mean that you can't remain anonymous. You still can remain anonymous, and it doesn't mean that your name has to go into a police report. It just gives us the ability to call you back to ask those further questions. If you don't want to do that and you don't want to provide your name and your phone number, that's an option as well. But we would ask that we at least be able to call you back to ask some more questions if we need to. The information that you provide to us is always just going to be used as a guide. We don't make any decisions directly off of it. We don't go knock on the door and say, so-and-so from the maintenance crew called us and what's going on. We don't do any of that. What we do is we use that as guiding information for us to begin an investigation, and we take it from there. We can conduct a very thorough and complete investigation based on just a little bit of information if we can ask the right questions. And so we would just hope to be able to call you to have the opportunity to ask those questions. So that's kind of the process that we would hope that you would go through if you are starting to notice some of these things. We hope that you would observe the indicators and observe enough activity to give us descriptions of who's involved. We would hope that you would report it to your front desk staff or directly to us so that we can start looking into it and start investigating.